Hi, and welcome to Night Clerk Radio. This is episode 47, Dagon by Cryo Chamber. And with me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Burke. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Because usually when I leave a shitty pun name for the episode title and the episode doc, you just kind of read it in the intro.
I do like that. Thank you for having me with.
You're welcome.
It's a Dagon.
It's a Dagon game.
Yeah.
It's a Dagon. It's a Dagon.
That's exactly it. Exactly. That was my thought process. Mm-hmm. But no, you gave an actual professional title.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's been so long since we recorded. I didn't want to make a misstep. I
understand.
And I wound up making
reads the teleprompter no matter what's on it.
Yeah. So Caleb's here with us because it is a Cthulhu Mythos Cryo Chamber album. And then we got to have Caleb. You know, it's a tradition now. This is our third album that we've done this way. So, they released it at the tail end of 2021. It is, of course, a 2-track, approximately 2-hour album of, a lot, featuring 20 artists from the Cryo Chamber bestiary. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it. Stable. I
would not call them a bestiary of artists, but it is clever.
Yeah. This is, of course, I think their 10th album they've done in this series, but this is only the third one we've reviewed. But I don't know. I have a lot to say, but I think overall this is a very focused album in terms of given what Dagon is in the Cthulhu mythos, which is a big fish god / demigod / servant of Cthulhu. It seems to be more focused in that. And it's he's a fish god, so water sounds.
Water sounds.
Yeah.
Did you want some water sounds? Dagon's got you covered.
It's got all of them. It's got lapping. It's got pouring. It's got dripping.
Slithering. Dripping.
Waves.
Bubbling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is a bubbling cauldron at some point. You know, it's weird. When I think of bubbling, I think of cauldrons. That's the only thing I think that bubbles.
What are you doing in your house, man?
I'm just thinking when I think of something that bubbles, I think of cauldrons. I don't
Don't you make pasta?
Well, that boils. That's different than bubbling.
Is it?
Pretty sure boiling involves bubbles, buddy. But
yeah, but
I've
the
seen
word.
It. I got footage.
Yeah.
You're just one of them educated folks that read Macbeth.
Yeah.
Can't help yourself.
Yeah. So, Burke, what are your first thoughts on the album?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. So I think I don't know as much about Dagon and Lovecraft themes and stuff as you do. Mm-hmm. So I had to ask. I always ask every time when these episodes come out, who's Dagon? I think this is my favorite of the three, maybe because it is more focused. And both you and Caleb, while prepping for this, came to me with that point, independently of each other. I think Caleb, the word you used was it felt more scored.
Yeah, unlike Haster, which felt very ambient, as in soundscapey. This is the sound of the space kind of stuff. And Yig, which felt very scored just because of the instrumental performances and stuff on it.
Okay.
Dagon feels scored like a film. Every time I'm listening to the ambient music, I feel like there's both a mix of sound that I'm supposed to take as diegetic, i.e. you're dripping into a pool, you're pouring waters, you're
at the beach, yeah.
Your Inception foghorns, which I are just assuming are being Dinny-V'd in the shot of whatever landscape is supposed to appear in my mind as I listen to this. But then it's always scored with the 12-minute fucking, who loves a kicking guitar riff? Dagon. Hit that chord. Bow. There's always a theremin or a vibe or something very the Hollywood Orchestra added this on top of it to make the space seem fuller in the studio. It feels very filmic in its mixture of natural sounds and almost found audio versus these very, very well-trod filmic tropes in, large Dinny-V soundscapes or starships landing in Dune, very intensely held theremin chords and synth chords over the top of it. And it feels like the mixture's in almost every part of it. I understand that was always there in a cryo chamber, but it feels very dualistic as I listen to this one.
Yeah.
Right. So I was thinking about this from both of you, and I tend to agree, and I think that's probably also why it's my favorite of them, because I think it also, in some sense, tracks the evolution of the kind of music Cryo Chamber is making and the kind of artists in their stable, right? Because I don't know if that's totally true, because like Miles to Midnight is an older album that had like a bunch of real instruments. But there was a period a few years ago where we kind of joked that like all Cryo Chamber stuff is just that Haster soundscape. And they've been introducing more and more artists who I think bring live instrumentation to the game.
Yeah.
Or at least more realistic instrumentation if it's not an actual cellist or whatever. More realistic and defined like synth patches and stuff. And then more recently, and I know you want to talk about this and we're kind of jumping around the album, but we reviewed the World Clock album, which has a lot of real instrumentation and a lot more structure and a lot more songwriting than previous Cryo Chamber stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a evolution there, and it kind of makes me want to, it would be like a Tim Rogersian project, but to like just listen to all 10 and to see who's on them.
Yeah.
And like
try and figure out, try and reverse
like
engineer
in explicit detail, like some evolution of like the kind of music Cryo Chamber makes, like in there, like some big archaeological, music archaeological type project. Because I think it's just the kind of stuff they make now.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but like, I just think some of that drone, like that real formless ambient is less common. I don't know. Maybe I don't listen to enough of their stuff, but listening to like their best ambient of 2021, that free compilation. Again, we did the World Clock. Other stuff that just comes up on their stream just feels a little bit more like cinematic and scored.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it totally worked. Because I was going to ask, you said it, but I was going to ask if you listened to Yig, because I thought Yig was also pretty striking in its difference between Haster. And I don't know if that's also intentional. Like that's why I need to listen to some of the really old ones, because Haster both could be a product of its time, but also just like that's Carcosa.
I have listened to the older albums. I mean, like not recently. I'd have to re-listen to them, but they didn't really grab me like Miles to Midnight did. Like Azathoth and Cthulhu were pretty very drone, very focused on that element. So
so I'm just wondering if that's like a stylistic evolution in Cryo Chamber.
Yeah, I think that's maybe also just the changing of the guard, because I think there's
just within the last 3, like that would require the Adam Neely-esque project of tracking it over 10 albums. But I think within the last 3, it's pretty apparent. Like
just Haster to Yig.
Yeah,
because Yig has so much more like direct Snake Man desert cult theming.
Yes, very much so. And I feel like this one actually pulled back on that in some places and returned the drone a bit, but like everything felt set to a scene. Like,
like
I didn't see a lot of instrumental elements bleeding over from one section of grating sounds or scraping sounds or bubbling sounds. Normally when the sort of diegetic tone shifts, it goes to a different instrumentation as well. So like you can kind of hear seams in it.
Yeah.
Unlike most ambient stuff that has come before in my experience.
Yeah. So like, I think a really good example of that is just the opening is really like the opening of of track 1, the beginning of the album is really striking in how it establishes the mood and just instantly makes that cinematic connection. Cause it's like, we're laying this shit on thick with especially, the water sounds, and also what's really striking, like the first 10 minutes there are all these like almost diegetic, like monster sounds of like clicking and like a low rumbly growl that sounds monstrous, almost like the predators,
like something waking up or something.
Like something waking up, or the predators providing background vocals. I'm not sure, but like clicking. And it's the first 10 minutes does a lot to establish this like cinematic angle to the album. And it does change over time, but I think that's sort of what really struck me is how evocative the opening of the album is.
Like I kind of tested this and I just started getting like scenes with big open waterscapes or underwaterscapes on YouTube and playing this over it. And like you can't tell the difference in underwater, except it's a little better. Like you can't tell the difference in like a lot of shots of like Dagon. Like it feels very like inspired. It also might be the result of the particular deep one chosen as the sort of watchword for this one, because like if you're going to pick Lovecraftian mythos shit, by far the most tread upon is sort of deep one Innsmouth, Dagon area. So like maybe the sheer number of visual reference for this compared to Yig is what produced this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like connecting to cosmic horror, I think the ocean is just a very relatable, scary thing.
Yeah, what is it? Thasalolophobia or whatever that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a giant thing that doesn't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did that one night, I think. Sorry to cut you off. I don't know if you were there, Russ, but we did this one night in our movie nights, the tub, where I just put on like ASMR, like coral footage, like 4K, like I'm just scuba diving off the coast of New Zealand and stuff, and just put Dagon on under it, and Caleb and I just watched that one night.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fit.
I mean, I think one of the things these albums are trying to do is Cryo Chamber's always been very focused on like sort of cinematic ambient, right? Like that's sort of like what they're trying to do. And so looking at it from their perspective as an artist, how do you tell? So they're trying to tell a story. And this is a Cthulhu mythos story. And so with Haster, that's how do you tell that acoustically? You know, like that's kind of an abstract challenge. And Yig is a little better because, you know, Yigs are snakes. It's a thing that has a correlation to the real world. Like snakes make sounds, they rattle, they hiss. But then you get to Dagon, and then its connotations of, you know, the ocean and aquatic life. And man, there's just a rich toolkit of sounds and that you can evoke to tell a story. So because of this theme, they have a lot more variety. They have a lot more things to tell a story just through sound. Because it's not like, you know, it's music, but it's ambient music. So, you know, again, soundscape. Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why this album works so well, is because it's easier to tell a story with certain themes than it, you know, a story through music with certain themes than others. So yeah, it'd be interesting to go back to the older albums and re-listen, especially Cthulhu, because Cthulhu is also aquatic.
Yeah. I think telling the story through sound is happening, but like, it's not really a story, which isn't like, I'm not poo-pooing on Cryo Chamber here, because like most of the shit Lovecraft wrote wasn't technically a story. It was like, I mean, when you get to weird fiction, you read something like The Willows. It's like, whoa, we were on a canoe and then we camped around some spooky trees and we left that morning, vowing to never speak again of the spooky trees. Like, and that's the like, that's the like beginning, middle, and end. It's just this tone poem. I think that is a little easier to do in music than like any element of plot. Like, you're not going to tell Randolph Carter. Like, yeah, I'm really interested to see in the Cryo Chamber Randolph Carter one. Like, what do they do when he starts blowing up tombs with dynamite? Like,
bust out the leitmotifs.
Yeah, exactly. If you're trying to invoke these sort of tone poems in Lovecraft, again, I think they're relying on just the tools in the toolbox, because like, you know, there's already books like Graham, Stealing Cthulhu, like the word's out, it's public domain. I think we all have sounds associated with Innsmouth now. And boy, howdy, did this album throw all of them at you. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's kind of like your corporate art thing for me. Like, once it's named and described, I'm like, oh yeah, that thing's in it. That thing's in it. That, like, once I hear it in this album, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pretty Cthulhu-y sound, which was not like a genre of sound I had in my head knowingly, but now I do. Like, I did have that genre. Yeah, it sort of recategorizes it or recognizes it for me, I guess.
Did either of you look at the PDF booklet that came with the album? Because I'm looking at it right now, and there's actually like an original short story, which is very Lovecraftian pastiche. As I hastened in this night with a mind to deprive them their imminent capture of me, I acquired the keys, and the dreams appeared with me, the hallucinogen quality of strange indefinite transpirations and that linger in the peripheries of my vision.
Yeah, a Lovecraft story where by the end of reading the assistant's like, who is standing where now? Like, what was actually happening? Yeah, it just collapses in on itself so internally with angst that by the end of it, you realize you just listened to somebody's psychological collapse. You couldn't tell what happened on a police blotter to anybody with a gun to your head. Yeah, I think this does that well.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, we said it's very aquatic focused, but there are some like variations. Like, I would like a sample here. This is from track 1, around 38 minutes. It's like buzzing insect sounds with followed by the monks going. I don't know how you call it other than monks going om. So yeah, I don't know what that like. There are some surprises on this album a little bit. Like
I think on these albums, the thing that always throws me off, and Caleb kind of made this joke, is the random like electric guitar, which I love a guitar sting.
Yeah,
like I think guitar should be used more.
Yeah,
outside of rock and stuff. But
yeah, the prog rock, post rock kind of like electric guitar, kind of just vibing.
Yeah, it sort of requires you to reach a sort of narratology agreement with the album. Like, I agree it's trying to tell a story, but like certain elements of that story are diegetic and certain aren't. Like, am I supposed to imagine a gray beach with like obsidian plinths sitting out of it and Zakk Wylde just hitting a power cord on top of one of them?
Well, he's strapped to the front of a boat like Mad Max style.
Yeah. Is it the doof foghorn? Like, yeah, it's sort of telling you part of this is for consideration and part of this is for mood, even though, you know, you would think as an album, well, it's all the mood. But it does sort of, I think, navigate that tightrope, that balance at some points.
I mean, like at some points, the album gets kind of almost pleasant and bubbly. Like there are some parts of this album that I felt would not have been out of place out of like a Telepath or a 2814 sort of ambient album. They're very lush, but like, I mean, so they're not many, but they are there. Like they're like Burke played a section for us as we were watching YouTube videos. It's like, oh, is that Telepath? I was like, no, that's Dagon. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's some Godspeed You Black Emperor, especially in the more droney parts.
I support adding Godspeed You Black Emperor to basically all music at all times. I think Taylor Swift would benefit from it. I think everyone would. Yeah. But like this album does have sort of its own kind of rhythm of like compared to like waves. Like there's this slow, gradual buildup of pressure and intensity, and then it just kind of gradually subsides, and then something else new comes in, and so it's kind of almost trying to lull you into not like sleep, into sort of like hypnosis or like a state of altered consciousness to kind of get you more aware. Or
I think you did describe it as like, I think you did like describe it as like sinking deep and deeper as it progresses, which I like as like a liquid water kind of analogy. I also think it's a lot in the production. Like there's this is really the basis of like kind of any good production or ambient stuff. There's a lot of use of like during those water effects of like panning. So like it's physically sloshing around you, like from ear to ear, which I liked.
Crescendo, descendo, like decrescendo. Yeah. A lot of round sounds in this.
A lot of movement.
I found it interesting that like when the more found audio versions would take up that rhythm, it was almost like the more instrumental versions had more time to play around, but like there were other times where it would be just like slithering sounds, and then like the more rhythmic side would be, you know, the guitar tone or the foghorn on it sort of had a meta. The whole thing was kind of lapping at you like waves, but it sort of had I think Ross was on it. It sort of has a meta element of that too, because like within each sort of seam, it does sort of crescendo and decrescendo. Into this rounder shape.
Yeah. And as we get into like track 2, which again, each one is like 55 minutes long, album 2 of this, we start getting that world clock stuff, like this sample. for me, it's like, hell yeah, more jazzy. Starting to sound like World Clock. It's very rich cellos or like those strings. There's a lot of weird strings that come in, and I'm a big fan of that. Like the opening is very strong, and then like the ending is also really interesting because it's unlike everything. Because like when you get in the last 10 minutes of it, it starts like has this diegetic sounds that sound like leaves blowing or something, and it kind of starts building into something different. I don't know, the calm of the storm. Like the last 10-ish minutes of this, 10-15 minutes of the track 2 sounds like unlike the rest of it, everything else that comes before it. So I quite like the ending.
Yeah, I thought the like leaves blowing and that whole 3 or 4 minutes of field recording at the end was interesting. I don't know if you're supposed to be like, I've completed my journey and I'm back out of the ocean.
Yeah. Was it all a dream? Yeah. Did it actually happen so long ago? Like, is this a flash forward? The character survived his close encounter with Dagon. Because I'm wondering, like, were they trying to fit the narrative that they had in their booklet, or like the original Dagon story, which is like, I believe a dude gets shipwrecked on this weird island and sees weird shit, doesn't know what goes on, and he somehow escapes and tells he's narrating it to the reader somehow, like through a letter or something. And that's the story. So yeah, it's very mysterious, and we did get some drums towards the end too. So, that's good.
Yeah. Those kind of came in also just like, oh, we have drums now, which is fine. Yeah. I mean, drums don't really fit most of the rest of the album. Unlike there were a lot of the marching drums and stuff in Yig.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like cult marching across the desert type feel to it. So yeah, it's thematically appropriate.
Yeah. I think just overall this album is kind of the opposite. Even though it's ambient music, like, I think their goal is basically the opposite of whatever music you hear at like spas, that new age music. Like, it's time for your massage, and they're trying to calm and like relax you, and like you just kind of drift off. It's like, no, this is also on me, but this is the exact opposite of that. We're trying to not make you relaxed. We're trying to like awaken you.
Does this album make you anxious? Either of you?
There are tense parts in it, like that certainly like. Every once in a while, there'll be like the foghorns or something that really like jerks your attention back. So you can't really. It's not music I would fall asleep to. I'll just say that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I get more out of the Haster. I don't care that nothing's happened in the music for 20 minutes. Humans level of drone like that. If that's going to invoke an emotional response in me, that's probably what's going to do it more so than this stuff. Which isn't to say I don't like this, but it's again, it just feels produced. Compared to, I guess, the more diegetic attempts earlier. Which is my theory on it.
Now, given the listening conditions, Haster probably fit your commute at the time better.
It did. In the interest of science, since I could not recreate that commute, I did also listen to Dagon while taking a bath bomb and sitting in the dark, and while also a little high and drunk. And I didn't have the same experience as I did with the King in Yellow.
Okay.
It was nice, but it didn't transcend. I do like the idea of a resort retreat run by A24 or something that's just piping this over the PA to unsettle people.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I was just thinking, because I was not really unsettled by this. I don't know.
Maybe unsettle is the wrong word, but it's just like, it's not putting you to sleep.
No, I get it. I get what you mean. Yeah. I think I get the intent, even if the exact adjective is.
I would say I didn't find any of these sounds uncanny. I very much expected them to be the music of this and arranged somewhat like this, I guess. So it's kind of hard to invoke that terror of the unknown when you're just like, oh yeah, big ass foghorn and maximum reverb and open space. Yeah, it's a Dagon album. Yeah. What else would you do? Of course there's seagulls in it. They're awful cawing little monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, and it could be some Burke brain stuff for the pandemic, whatever. But yeah, I found this album like very relaxing, like just very.
I've been writing to it quite a bit over the past few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's really good writing music. I think it's really good because that's not like writing music is not something you want to fall asleep to. Like, it's something you want to be like awaken and focus. And I think this is something to keep you focused because it's sending you on a journey to go meet Dagon and cross the ocean.
Yeah, it's very movie soundtrack, but you don't have to like wait for the switch to like the rap song that was in the credits.
Yeah, exactly. That's a problem with movie scores is like only a third of that score is actually appropriate for what the mood you're trying to go. As we discussed, that's at some point we should make like a mix or a playlist of all the good bits from like horror movie scores, so it like get a consistent mood across. So
LL Cool J, Deepest Bluest.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's that's how we started off. That's the lead. I
don't know if you heard, but his head is like a shark's fin.
I had heard that.
And then, of course, Rob Zombie's Dracula, because
of course,
legally mandated and is in a third of all movies.
Is it?
I think they finally repealed that law, but like from 1992 to 2002, it was pretty much required.
Had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get Dracula out of my soundtracks.
Yeah. It was an addendum to the Bush v. Gore.
Stole my election and my Dracula.
But this album's not only available for purchase, you can listen to the whole thing on YouTube, and people have been very positive about this just looking at the YouTube comments. One of the rare sections where people are quite happy with it, although there's everything from, it was very notable. The Void calls. There's no hope for mankind. So, oh my God, yes. It's Cryo Chamber just released a new album that is very piano focused that I haven't listened to yet, called Timeless. So it looks like they are sort of shifting a little bit towards maybe less drone focused. I don't know. I'll have to listen to that album.
Probably one of the advantages of being like in the genre space, like a bigger album is you just or a bigger label rather, is that you probably just have kind of access to whatever interesting stuff people feel like making. Yeah. I
mean, this is a collaboration of 20 artists, which is a huge undertaking. It'd be really interesting to know, let's see, 20 artists divided by like 120 minutes. So like that's on average 6 minutes per artist. So did they just hear you're doing this section to this section and here's what came before? Or like, how do they plan this out? At some point, I'd like to have a documentary or some sort of.
Yeah, if Cryo Chamber could like publish the Discord server logs of whatever people,
however they do
whatever people are coordinating this, that would be to me way more interesting than your Lovecraft pastiche story. But include that too. But I really want to know, like, all right, you take 45 seconds of static here, and I'll do or is it just like hands off my 6 minutes. This is my chunk. You can't touch it. And are they doing them sequentially? So is someone basically, are they basically playing telephone throughout the album? Or like, I have so many questions about organizationally how you work.
It's like a classroom. Everyone partner up. This is a.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh shit. No. Actually, I was supposed to be on a Cryo Chamber album. It turned out I was going through some stuff and didn't do my homework.
Dead melodies, you go help God Body disconnect,
That's the thing is I would love some actual with the next one. If they could do some behind the scenes would be so fascinating, because also at some point, like maybe this is in the credits, I just missed it, but at some point some mastermind has to come up and just make an album out of everything.
I think it's Simon Heath, Atrium Carceri.
I figured as well.
Yeah, because it's mastering by him, and this is his record label. So I think he is
right.
I mean, I would put money that he is the mastermind behind it all. Like
sort of what I assumed, but like mastering is part of it and important. But and maybe that just covers all the actual editing and piecing together. But yeah, I would love to know like in what state stuff gets to them before that happens. But I just want to know. I want to know.
Oh, sorry. This is only their 8th one. They've been doing it since. So Cthulhu was 2014. So this is number 8. So we could actually do a retrospective at some point of the first 5 albums. Cthulhu, Azathoth.
You could do like 2 albums a month for a few months or something.
Yeah.
And then like actually, like I said, do like musical archaeology or anthropology or whatever. Just really see how it tracks. Like with the evolution of what they're making at the time on the label.
Yeah. Be really
Can't wait to come on here for Bast, and it just sounds like the Meow Mix jingle.
That would be their one. Like, hey, we're doing it April 1st. Cthulhu Mythos album. Rule. It's fucking
meow 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 meow.
fucking Euro beat, 200 beats per minute. Just a cat meowing.
Yeah, it's just Sandstorm.
No, it's just
cats.
that cat throwing up to techno.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, we all like the album, and you should listen to it. It's
That's our very professional,
very professional
album. Good. Give listen.
So thanks for listening to this episode. Caleb, is there anything you would like to mention?
I am found on Delta Green Dead channels where I do other Cthulhu-y things. So find me there.
And our next episode is going to be going back into Signal Wave. Infinity Frequencies has released a new album, which I'm very curious to hear. And of course, there's a lot of other Signal Wave artists out there making interesting stuff. Pat Chinnington is actually releasing a video on Infinity Frequencies soon.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's just a Signal Wave January.
That's right, because it's kind of one of those subgenres that I guess in some sense slipped through the cracks. Like we talked about it a little bit in early episodes. But yeah, never really got its own episode to talk about. So I think it'll be good to get into, even if we're a little late.
Yeah. So we are on Twitter at Night Clerk Radio. I am at Ross Payton on Twitter. Burke is at Burke McBurkinson. Our website is nightclerkradio.com, and we have a Facebook page that I occasionally remember to post episodes to. And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you use, and tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone who wants to have weird dreams at night that they should listen to the sounds of the ocean and us.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to use a little trick I learned from Spencer. If you like what we do, tell 2 enemies about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely how he pitched it. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Nailed it.
All right.
They'll become frenemies.
Call to action.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye.